You know that feeling when you first wake up and like before your feet even hit the floor, there is this heavy, crushing weight sitting right on your
Oh,
chest.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you haven't even looked at your phone yet, you haven't checked your email, you haven't looked at the news, and you definitely haven't spoken to a single human being yet. But that weight, it's already there.
It's waiting for you.
Right. It is. And it's the sheer exhaustion of what we might call the modern sweat economy, like
Yeah.
this constant draining baseline feeling that you are just never quite good enough. It's the feeling of always waiting for the other shoe to drop, of feeling like you're perpetually behind, and worst of all, feeling like your own biology is actively fighting against you.
Yeah, it really is.
It's the sensation of being perpetually on trial in a courtroom where you don't even know what the charges are, and you just live there.
Well, the thing is, it is the absolute baseline frequency for almost everyone living in the modern world right now. I mean, if you look at the physiological data of the average adult, their nervous system is functioning in a state of chronic low-grade alarm.
Like an engine that's just always revving a little too high.
Exactly. It's this subconscious expectation of punishment. We are quite literally wired through, years of cultural and religious conditioning to just expect a penalty.
We're waiting to be hit.
Right. Because the human brain is incredibly efficient. And if you feed it a narrative of inherent guilt for long enough, it stops waiting for an actual threat to appear and just leaves the alarm bells ringing permanently.
And living with those alarms ringing 24 hours a day is utterly exhausting. I mean, it burns you out. But today, we are taking a massive deep dive into a stack of sources that argue this exhaustion isn't actually your fault.
No, it's really not.
And, it isn't a permanent medical condition you just have to manage for the rest of your life. We're looking at an incredible convergence today. It's this mix of ancient Greek military texts, modern epigenetic research, and first-century legal blueprints.
It's a fascinating stack of documents.
It really is. And the mission of this deep dive is to completely dismantle what these sources call the imposter lion, the exact thing that is causing all of this baseline anxiety. We are going to expose the religious legalist, and we're going to look at the argument that a massive historical mistranslation is not just bad theology, but it is literally physically making you sick.
Yeah, and the most fascinating element of these sources is how they bridge that gap, right, between abstract philosophy and hard, measurable biology.
Right, it's not just theory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are not just talking about ancient theological debates that only matter in some dusty seminary. We're talking about the literal operating system of the human nervous system here. What we are examining today is the argument that discovering the true historical translation of these texts and understanding this concept of a cleared ledger is the ultimate shortcut to profound physical peace.
It changes everything.
It does. It literally alters the environment in which your cells replicate.
And the paradigm shift required to get there is, it's massive. For you listening, the core argument here is this. What if the things you were taught to fear your entire life, the monsters in the closet, the wrathful deity waiting to punish you, what if they are completely bankrupt phantoms?
Completely fabricated.
Right. What if they literally do not exist in the way you were told? So we're going to start by looking at a concept that has been entirely just watered down. We usually associate the word meekness with being a total pushover, right?
Absolutely.
Like the kid getting bullied on the playground. But the sources we are looking at suggest that true meekness is actually the most dangerous, lethal force a human being can possess.
And if you want to understand why our nervous systems are so fried, we have to start exactly there. We have to dismantle this religious, castrated definition of meekness.
Castrated is a good word for it.
Well, it is. Because if you look at standard religious tradition, specifically regarding texts like Matthew chapter 5 and that famous phrase, blessed are the meek.
Well, everyone knows that one.
Exactly. The institutional interpretation has painted the ideal spiritual person as passive, quiet, and just overly accommodating.
Yeah, the image we always get is someone who is essentially a human doormat. You just take whatever life hands you, you don't fight back, you don't ever raise your voice, and you certainly don't assert any real authority. You're supposed to be kind of like a petting zoo pony.
A petting zoo pony. That is a perfect analogy.
Right, like kids can pull your hair, people can push you around, and you just stand there chewing grass, completely harmless.
Yes, and harmless is the exact word the institutional system wants you to internalize. But if we actually audit the original Greek word used in that specific first-century text, The entire image of the petting zoo pony just fractures into pieces.
Okay, so what is the word?
The word in the original manuscript is prietus.
Praetos.
Right. And to understand what that word actually meant to a person living in the Greco-Roman world, we have to look at ancient Greek military vocabulary.
Wait, military, so not religious vocabulary.
Not at all. In the context of the Greek military, particularly in manuals regarding horsemanship written by generals like Xenophon, a praetus was absolutely not a broken-down, passive animal.
Okay, so what was it?
A praetus was a wild, incredibly powerful stallion that had been perfectly broken for battle.
Oh, wow. So a warhorse. Not a pony, but an animal specifically bred and trained for the chaos of ancient warfare.
Precisely. I mean, think about the psychology of a horse. A horse is naturally a prey
It
animal.
wants to run.
Exactly. Its instinct, when faced with loud noises, sharp objects, or chaos, is to flee. The flight response is its primary survival mechanism. But the Greek military needed an animal that could charge headlong into a line of screaming soldiers holding spears, amidst the deafening noise of clashing bronze and the smell of blood.
Which goes against every biological instinct that animal has.
Every single one. So to train a horse to ignore its deepest biological survival instincts takes immense time and skill. And when a stallion was finally trained to that level of supreme discipline, where it possessed lethal, bone-crushing force, but would only unleash that force or hold it completely in check at the exact slightest touch of the rider's heel, that horse was declared praise.
So praetos isn't about weakness at all.
Not even a little bit.
It is about bridled strength, its unbending power entirely at rest under the hand of a master rider.
That is the exact mechanical equivalent. It is power made governable, not power eliminated. I mean, the stallion doesn't lose its muscles, its speed, or its capacity for violence. It simply submits that massive capacity to a higher intelligence, the rider.
Right.
When the rider says hold, the horse stands perfectly still, even if spears are flying past its head. When the rider says charge, the horse delivers devastating force.
I love this because it completely flips the script on what we've been told. I mean, the institutional system essentially tells you that to be a good, meek person, you need to be like a broken down golf cart.
A golf cart, yes.
Because the golf cart can't do any damage.
Yeah.
Right. But it also can't win a race or carry any real weight. But the original text, this concept of the praise warhorse, says you are a Formula One engine idling on the starting grid. You have massive horsepower. You have the capacity to dismantle opposition. But you are completely flawlessly under the driver's control. You aren't harmless. You are incredibly dangerous, but perfectly disciplined.
And this historical context changes how we read other ancient texts, too. For instance, if you look at Psalm 18, the writer says, "By my God, I can leap over a wall and run against a troop."
Right, which sounds pretty aggressive.
Exactly. If you read that with the mindset of the petting zoo pony, it makes no sense. A passive, terrified person isn't charging against a military troop.
No, they're hiding in the back.
Right. That is the voice of a highly capable soldier holding the capacity to dismantle an opposition, but choosing to act only when the rider moves the reins. The sources argue that human beings were originally designed to carry massive jurisdictional weight. You were built to have an impact.
But, okay, this brings up a really critical contradiction.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we are designed with this much internal horsepower, if the human design is actually this prae's warhorse capable of leaping walls and facing down chaos without flinching, why do so many of us live in a constant state of panic?
Yeah.
I mean, if we have this structural leverage, why are we sweating through our shirts at 3 a.m. worrying about an email? Why is the baseline anxiety so incredibly loud for everyone?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. I mean, if you are a warhorse, why are you shivering in the corner of the stall? The sources point to a very specific reason. We have bought into the bluff of a counterfeit predator. The anxiety isn't coming from a genuine existential threat that can actually destroy you.
Okay, then where is it coming from?
The anxiety is being artificially generated because we have been sold a holographic threat. We have been conditioned to believe in a monster that, upon closer inspection, has absolutely no teeth.
I really want to dig into this mechanism because this completely changed how I understand the concept of fear when I was reading through the material. The sources call this the imposter lion.
Yes.
Now, for centuries, the legacy religious franchise essentially built a global horror movie out of a single verse in the New Testament. It's 1 Peter 5:8. And the standard interpretation tells people to live in absolute constant terror of a roaring lion that is prowling around looking to devour them.
It's the ultimate boogeyman.
It is. They basically told generations of people, hey, there is a demonic monster in the bushes. It is infinitely stronger than you. It wants to eat your life, your marriage, and your health. and you have to be constantly vigilant and terrified of it.
And that standard interpretation requires a complete, almost willful disregard for the original Greek source code.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at the actual language of that text. The verse translates roughly to, "Your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion." Let's break down two key words there. First, the word for adversary is antikos.
Antidikos.
Which means what exactly?
Antidikos is a strict first-century legal term.
Legal.
Yes. It means a prosecuting attorney or an opponent in a lawsuit. It specifically refers to someone who is bringing a legal charge against you before a judge.
Wow.
It does not mean a physical beast, a goblin, or a monster with claws. The adversary is a legal entity whose only weapon is the law.
Wait, so right out of the gate, the text isn't talking about a predator in the jungle. It's talking about a lawyer in a courtroom. Exactly. It's a completely different context.
Yeah.
And secondly, the text uses the Greek word hush. This is comparative conjunction. It means like or as. It's a simile.
Yeah.
The text literally says this prosecuting attorney is walking around as a roaring lion. He is an imposter. He is using a holographic acoustic projection to mimic a threat he does not actually possess.
Because he wants you to think he's a lion.
Right. The lawyer wants you to think he's a lion.
Right.
Because if you realize he's just a lawyer, and worse, a lawyer whose case has already been thrown out, you wouldn't be afraid of him.
But what about the roar? Because, I mean, a lion's roar is terrifying. If I'm walking in the woods and I hear a lion roar, my nervous system is going to shut down, whether the lion is a hologram or not. The word for roar here isn't the triumphant sound of a king.
No, it is not. The word used for roaring in this specific verse is huromai.
Wow.
Yes. And this is a very specific type of sound. It does not mean the triumphant, chest-rattling roar of a dominant king who owns the territory and has just secured a kill.
Okay, so it's not Mufasa.
Definitely not Mufasa. Yoramai refers to the pathetic, howling, desperate bluff of a starving beast.
Oh, wow.
It is the sound of an animal that is deeply hungry, weakened, and entirely desperate for a meal. In the context of the antidikos, the legal adversary, it is the howling bluff of an entirely disbarred attorney.
A disbarred attorney? That paints such a pathetic picture.
It's meant to. It is the sound of a homeless squatter standing outside a house, screaming at the top of his lungs, desperate for the homeowner to voluntarily hand over the deed to the property.
Because he can't just take it.
Exactly. Because the squatter knows he holds absolutely zero legal right to enter the premises.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here for a second, though.
Sir, go ahead.
I get the linguistic argument. I see the words antidikos and iromai. But let's look at reality for a second. People's lives are actually being destroyed. People are having nervous breakdowns. Families are falling apart. Chronic stress is killing people.
Oh, the damage is very real.
Right. So if this adversary has absolutely zero bite and is literally just a disbarred attorney screaming in an empty hallway with a megaphone, how is he devouring anyone? The text clearly says he is seeking whom he may devour. If he has no teeth, if the threat is just a hologram, why is the damage so physically real in our lives?
That is the sinister genius of the con. You have to understand how predatory acoustic pressure works, even in nature.
Acoustic pressure.
Yes. In the wild, a true lion's roar contains infrasound, these low-frequency sound waves that human ears can barely even detect, but that actually physically paralyze prey.
Really? Just the sound does that?
Just the sound. When a lion roars, the acoustic pressure hits the nervous system of the prey animal, causing it to freeze in sheer terror, making it an easy kill. The imposter lion doesn't have the teeth to eat you, but he uses the acoustic pressure of manufactured psychological threat. He relies entirely on noise to trigger a panic response in your nervous system.
So he uses the threat of violence to make you self-destruct.
Precisely. If this imposter can make you panic, what do? You drop your authority. You forget that you are the prey's warhorse.
You step out of the stall.
You step out of that heavy internal gyroscope of peace, you drop the reins, and you try to fight him on your own strength, or you run in terror. The only way the accuser can consume you is if you agree with his accusation.
Wow. So it's consensual in a twisted way.
Yes. He cannot forcefully take your peace. He has to trick you into voluntarily surrendering it. And how does he do that? He mimics the roar of the king. He mimics the voice of divine justice.
Oh, I see. He makes you think God is the one screaming at you.
Yes. The ultimate deception of the legalist is to make you mistake the howl of the disbarred squatter for the righteous wrath of the Father. If you think the creator of the universe is furious with you, your nervous system collapses.
Of course it does. You can't fight God.
Exactly. You voluntarily hand over the keys to your mental health, your physical health, and your peace because you believe you deserve the punishment.
So how exactly does this legalist pull off the impersonation? Like, how does he convince humanity that God is the one pacing back and forth, waiting to devour them?
He needs a big stick.
Right, and the sources point to a very specific weapon used for behavioral control. He does it by threatening you with an incinerator. He uses the concept of hell.
Yes, the religious operative, the legalist, runs a very specific historical con. They have to convince you that the fire is God's idea. They have to impersonate the king's justice to extract your obedience and keep you trapped in that sweat economy we talked about.
And this brings us to what is arguably the single most misunderstood, traumatizing concept in human history, the concept of a literal, eternal, burning hell, and how it has been used for centuries to police human behavior. I mean, if you want to induce the ultimate panic response in a human being, tell them that if they make a mistake, they will burn forever in a subterranean torture chamber.
It's the ultimate trump card. But to dismantle this, we have to forensically examine the historical and geographical context of the ancient texts. Because the English word hell, with all its, medieval Dante-esque baggage of pitchforks and demons, simply doesn't exist in the original Greek source code.
It's not in there at all.
Not at all. When the prototype Jesus was walking the dirt and warning his audiences, the word he used was Gehenna.
Gehenna, which wasn't a mythological place, right?
Not at all. To a first-century Jewish ear in Jerusalem, Gehenna was a literal, physical, geographical location.
Like a place on a map?
Exactly. It's the Valley of Hinnom, a ravine located just outside the southern walls of the city. Centuries prior, it had been a site where apostate kings of Judah performed horrific child sacrifices.
That's incredibly dark.
It was horrific.
Yeah.
And because of this abhorrent history, later righteous kings, like Josiah, intentionally defiled the valley to prevent those rituals from ever happening again. By the 1st century, Gehenna had become the municipal garbage dump for the city of Jerusalem.
So it's literally a landfill.
It was a continuously burning incinerator. The city threw its refuse, its garbage, the carcasses of dead animals, and the diseased elements of the old city into this valley to be consumed by fire. The fires were kept burning day and night to manage the waste and prevent disease.
Wow.
It carried a deep, culturally ingrained prophetic memory of judgment and destruction. Absolutely. But it was an earthly geographical reality. It was not a spiritual underworld ruled by a red monster.
That context changes everything. So when the text talks about Gehenna, it's not pointing to a metaphysical basement where God tortures souls. It's pointing to the city incinerator.
Exactly.
So let's look at one of the most terrifying verses used by the religious system, Matthew 10:28. The text says, "And do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in Gehenna."
Yeah, that's wrong.
For my entire life, I was told that him in that verse was God. The message was, don't fear human killers, fear God, because God is the one who can and will throw you into the eternal basement if you step out of line.
And that interpretation is the ultimate tragic inversion of the text. Jesus wasn't warning his friends about the Father. He was warning them about the Pharisee.
Wait, he was talking about the religious leaders.
Yes, he was pointing directly at the religious legalist. Let's look at the mechanics of the verse. A Roman soldier, an earthly killer, can only kill your physical body with a sword. It's a tragic physical death, but it ends there. The Roman soldier cannot touch your identity, your dignity, or your soul.
Right.
But the religious legalist, the one who claims to speak for God, the one who demands you live under an impossible behavioral treadmill of rules and regulations, uses the law to destroy your entire identity from the inside out.
Oh, wow. So the legalist weaponizes your own conscience against you.
Exactly. The legalist doesn't need to lock you in a physical basement. They lock you in the prison of your own mind. When a religious system preaches condemnation, when they tell you that you are fundamentally flawed, constantly falling short, and owe a moral debt you can never possibly repay, they are lighting a fire inside your psychology.
Your own mind becomes Gehenna.
Yes. Your mind becomes the smoldering garbage dump of Gehenna.
So the warning in Matthew 10:28 is essentially, beware of the person who tries to put you under the crushing weight of religious law. Because while a sword just kills you once, the law will make you incinerate yourself from the inside out every single day.
You do the work for them.
You will burn your own peace to ash in the Valley of Hinnom in your own mind. You will live in a constant waking state of dread, anticipating your own punishment.
That is the exact anatomy of the legalist con. They make you the agent of your own destruction. By convincing you that the vertical ledger, the account between you and the Creator, is full of red ink and angry debt, they ensure that you will never experience rest. You remain a terrified, sweating participant in their economy of behavioral control.
But this psychological terrorism, this mental incinerator, it doesn't just stay in your head. It's not just a bad mood. And here's where these sources cross over from ancient theology into hard, measurable, modern biology.
Right, this is where the physical damage happens.
Exactly. When your mind is trapped in Gehenna, it launches a devastating physical attack on your biological hardware.
And to understand the mechanism of how a thought becomes a physical disease, we have to execute a linguistic separation that religion deliberately blurred for centuries.
Let's do it.
The sources argue that the single greatest theological error of the ancient world, which still infects us today, is the Gnostic lie.
The Gnostic lie.
Yes, Gnosticism is the belief that the physical world, and specifically the human physical body, is an evil, corrupted meat suit that your pure, enlightened spirit must constantly fight and suppress.
The classic divide. The idea that your spirit wants to do good, but your flesh is inherently dirty, sinful, and dragging you down into the mud. You know, that you are basically an angel trapped in a prison of disgusting skin.
That dualism creates a schizophrenic spirituality. It forces the human being into a state of perpetual civil war. To unravel this, we have to look at two entirely distinct Greek words that the historical texts used very precisely, but which the religious matrix sloppily conflated into one overarching concept of badness.
And those two words are sarx and summa.
Exactly.
All right, we need to draw a hard line between these two words because this distinction is like the divorce of the century. If you get this wrong, you end up hating your own biology. Let's start with sarx.
Sarx is most often translated in English Bibles as flesh. But in the context of these specific philosophical and theological sources, sarx rarely refers to your physical skin, muscles, and bones.
So it's not my actual body.
No. Sarx is an operating system. It is the obsolete, fear-based Adamic software that runs on the premise of separation from the creator. It is the invisible psychology of what we might call the panic manager.
The panicked manager, I love that description.
Yes. The sarx is the consciousness of lack. It is the belief system that says there is not enough, you are not enough, you are alone, you must protect yourself at all costs, and the universe is fundamentally hostile.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. It operates on the algorithms of thermodynamic entropy, meaning everything is winding down, decaying, and you have to fight tooth and nail for your survival. It is an entirely psychological and epigenetic construct.
So sarx isn't my body. Sarx is a corrupted software file. It's bad code.
It is entirely bankrupt software. Now, contrast that completely with the word summa.
Okay, summa.
Summa is the Greek word for your actual physical biological vehicle. It is the carbon, the water, the intricate neural pathways, the cellular membranes, and the liquid crystal structure of your DNA.
The actual hardware.
Yes. The sources argue that the summa is entirely neutral. In fact, it is deeply sacred. It is a masterpiece of engineering. The summa is essentially a highly advanced biological 3D printer.
A 3D printer.
Exactly. It is a sensitive receiving antenna that simply takes whatever frequency or software code is being broadcast into it and prints it out into physical reality.
This metaphor makes so much sense. I mean, think about an actual 3D printer sitting on your desk, right?
Right.
If you feed a corrupted software file, like a bad G code, into the printer is going to spit out a warped, jagged, broken object. But you don't take a hammer and smash the printer.
Of course not.
Because the hardware is completely innocent. It did exactly what it was told to do. You open the computer, you find the corrupted file, and you fix the code.
Exactly. But what did the religious system teach us to do?
It taught us to smash the printer.
Yes.
When religion told us to wage spiritual warfare against our flesh, they blurred sarx and summa together. They convinced us that our natural physical desires, our biological sensations, our hunger, our exhaustion, our actual summa was the enemy. We were literally attacking innocent hardware.
We were placing the central nervous system on a permanent wartime footing against itself. When you believe your biology is the enemy, you create massive, insurmountable cognitive dissonance.
A civil war inside your own skin.
Exactly. One part of your brain is generating the wholly natural impulses of life, the desire for connection, rest, sustenance. But your prefrontal cortex, infected by the religious virus of the sarx, is trying to suppress, judge, and punish those impulses.
That's crazy.
And your body cannot distinguish between a complex theological problem and a saber-toothed tiger standing in the room. When the brain registers conflict and condemnation, it prepares the physical body for war.
So let's trace the exact mechanism here. What actually happens to this innocent biological 3D printer, your summa, when it receives the toxic, corrupt code of the legalist's condemnation. When that SARC software is running the machine, what does the printer physically do?
What happens is a profound, measurable epigenetic catastrophe. This is where we see the literal physical power of human belief. In epigenetics, we know that environmental signals, including our thoughts and perceptions, can cross the cellular membrane and literally alter how our genes express themselves without changing the underlying DNA sequence.
It changes how the blueprint is read.
Right. The subconscious expectation of punishment instilled by the legalist is the ultimate biological nocebo.
Let's define nocebo for the listener, just to be crystal clear. It's basically the evil twin of the placebo effect.
Correct. The placebo effect is when a person believes a sugar pill will heal them, and their belief actually triggers a biological healing response. The nocebo effect is the exact opposite. It is when you believe something harmless will harm you, or you believe you are fundamentally sick or cursed, and that negative belief triggers a cascade of biological destruction. It is the physiological manifestation of a negative expectation.
So let's trace a condemning thought. The legalist tells me God is angry with me. I internalize that thought. I believe I am fundamentally guilty. What happens next inside my body?
When your brain accepts the imposter lion's lie that you are guilty and condemned, the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, fires an alarm. It signals the hypothalamus, which signals the pituitary gland, which signals the adrenal glands. This is known as the HPA axis.
Stress response.
Yes. Instantly, the sympathetic nervous system is triggered. Your bloodstream is flooded with stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline.
Which we often call the chemistry of death, at least when it's chronic.
Well, it is entirely necessary for acute survival. Cortisol is designed to save your life in a 10-second sprint away from a physical predator. It diverts all energy away from digestion, cellular repair, and the immune system, and pumps it into your skeletal muscles so you can run or fight.
Right, which is great if there's an actual bear chasing you.
Exactly. But what happens if you leave that faucet running for 20 years because you think the creator of the universe is angry with you?
Your body breaks down, you can't digest food, you can't sleep, your cells stop repairing themselves because the body thinks it's about to be eaten.
The chemistry becomes deeply toxic. The Summa, your innocent 3D printer, dutifully receives this jagged acoustic signal of katakrima, the Greek word for condemnation. And because the printer is just following the software code, it prints out the condemnation as physical reality. It prints it as chronic exhaustion, rapid cellular aging, systemic inflammation, and disease.
Because it's just following orders. It thinks you're under attack from the imposter lion, so it's keeping the shields up until the power generators literally burn out.
If we look at autoimmune disease in the medical sciences, it provides the perfect, terrifying physical manifestation of this spiritual guilt cycle.
Yeah.
In an autoimmune response, the body has a perfectly functioning, highly lethal immune system. The hardware works fine,
Right.
but the targeting software is corrupted. The immune system, particularly the T cells, loses the ability to distinguish between a hostile invading pathogen and perfectly innocent native tissue.
So it turns its weapons inward.
It attacks its own joints, its own thyroid, its own organs, because it is frantically trying to eradicate a threat that mathematically isn't there. The brain is screaming, "We are guilty, we are condemned, there is an enemy." And the immune system, desperate to protect you, starts shooting at your own cells because it can't find the invisible legalist.
That is absolutely staggering. I mean, it makes so much sense. So when you get a wave of baseless anxiety today, or when a doctor looks at a chart and gives you a prognosis, which, let's be honest, often acts like a ritualistic hex on a patient's biology, initiating a massive nocebo effect, it's not a spiritual attack.
Yeah.
It's not a demon hiding in your closet. It's just cellular withdrawal from the old cortisol addiction. Your cells are just looping the old SARC software. Your DNA is coiled tightly shut in a defensive crouch because it truly believes the imposter lion is real. It believes the disbarred attorney still holds a valid warrant for your arrest, and your body is just bracing for the handcuffs.
That is exactly the mechanism. The physical body is mirroring the legal status of the mind. As long as the mind believes the legal case is open and you are awaiting sentencing, the body will remain in the incinerator of Gehenna.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. How do we stop it? How do we rewrite the code? If the nervous system is destroying the physical body because it thinks it's on trial, we have to introduce the nervous system to an environment where the threat is completely legally neutralized.
Right, we have to clear the court record.
Exactly.
The cure for this biological decay is not more willpower. It is not trying harder to be a good person. The cure is the absolute unshakable finality of what the sources call the finished work.
The finished work.
It is the realization that the court case has already been closed. And to understand the mechanics of this, we have to look at the forensic architecture of the two ledgers.
The two ledgers. Okay, this is the absolute core of the entire paradigm shift. Walk us through the bank vault. How do these ledgers work?
Imagine two separate accounting books. The first is the vertical ledger. This is the account between humanity and the originating title holder, the creator, the father.
Right, the big account.
Yes. For millennia, humanity, driven by the Sark's operating system, believed they owed a massive, unpayable moral debt to this creator, and they lived in terror of the bank manager coming to collect. What the first-century sources reveal is that the Goel, a Hebrew legal term, meaning the kinsman redeemer, the prototypes, walked into that cosmic courtroom at Golgotha.
The crucifixion.
Yes. He took the handwritten hostile debt bond that stood against humanity, and he didn't just pay a monthly installment. He wiped the ink entirely off the papyrus, and he drove a steel spike through the paper.
Wow. The text in Colossians says he nailed it to the cross. He didn't just pay the debt, he destroyed the very concept of the debt.
He zeroed it out permanently.
Yeah.
The vertical ledger is closed. There is no secret file being kept on you in the central vault. There are no demerits being tallied. There are no entries left to be made. The debt is zero.
Zero.
And here is the biological application. When your nervous system actually understands this, when the amygdala finally realizes that the katakona, the condemnation, has been permanently removed from the universe, the summa stops printing the stress chemistry.
Alarm turns off.
The HPA axis powers down. The cortisol clears the bloodstream. The immune system reboots and regains its proper targeting parameters. Somatic healing begins because the printer has finally been fed the pristine code of peace.
But I need to jump in here and make a really crucial distinction.
Of course.
Because whenever we talk about the vertical ledger being completely erased, people immediately jump to the extremes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They hear the debt is zero, there is no condemnation, and they say, oh, so this is just lawlessness. You're saying people can just do whatever they want, hurt whoever they want, and God doesn't care. We have to clarify that this does not mean the horizontal ledger is erased.
Yeah, it definitely does not mean that.
If someone breaks a contract, if someone steals your car, if someone commits a crime against a child on the dirt, the horizontal earthly penal code is fully active, right? We can hold a predator accountable horizontally in an earthly court without believing God is condemning us vertically.
This distinction is paramount.
Yeah.
And confusing the two is what creates massive sociological and psychological damage. Collapsing the two ledgers into one another is a recipe for absolute disaster.
How so?
Well, if you collapse the horizontal into the vertical, meaning you think God manages the earthly daily ledger, then every time you make a mistake on a random Tuesday, you snap at your spouse, you mess up at work, you think God has reopened your cosmic court case.
The shame returns.
The cortisol spikes. You are back in the incinerator of Gehenna.
Right. You think your salvation is lost because you lost your temper.
Exactly. On the other flip side, if you collapse the vertical into the horizontal, you get absolute moral vacancy. You get people who think that because God forgave them vertically, human victims have no right to demand justice, boundaries, or restitution horizontally.
Which, tragically, is exactly how abusers hide inside religious systems. They say, you know, God forgave me, the ledger is clear, so you have to forgive me and let me back into a position of power.
It is the ultimate manipulation of grace. But the architecture of the sources refuses both of these errors. The vertical ledger is permanently, irrevocably closed in Christ. The horizontal ledger, however, remains actively guarded.
Because actions have consequences on earth.
Right. The Father enforces horizontal accountability precisely to protect the innocent. You can apologize to a person you've hurt on the dirt without having to apologize for your very existence. You can repair a damaged fence, pay a fine, or face the consequences of your actions without rebuilding the Adamic slave matrix in your mind.
That is incredibly freeing. I mean, you can take responsibility for your actions without believing you are fundamentally trash.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so when you actually grasp this architecture, when your nervous system deeply accepts that the vertical ledger is a flat zero and you are no longer on trial, what happens to your biology? How does the central vault actually secure your mind against the daily anxieties of life?
The Greek text in Philippians chapter 4, verse 7 uses a stunning, highly specific military verb to describe the biological and psychological result of this realization. The text says, "The peace of God will fill your hearts and minds." Foray is not a passive, gentle grandmotherly watching over you. It means to station a fully armed, heavily equipped military garrison. It means to establish an impenetrable perimeter guard.
A heavily armed perimeter guard around your mind.
Yes, the peace of God, the reality of the closed ledger, deploys a permanent armed military perimeter directly around your cardia, which in Greek thought was the seat of your emotional baseline, and your nomata, your cognitive processing centers, your thoughts.
Okay, so when a rogue symptom appears in your body, or a financial threat hits your bank account, or a manufactured crisis on the news approaches your nervous system, it does not reach you directly.
It hits the armed garrison first.
Wow. The peace intercepts the threat before the amygdala can even register it. So let's bring this all the way down to the ground. When your biology is healing, when the imposter lion has been exposed as a fraud with a microphone, and the armed garrison is deployed around your mind, what does your daily life actually look like? What happens when you wake up on a random, ordinary Tuesday?
You step into the reality of what we might call the lucid sovereign. You experience the unbothered Tuesday. Remember our analogy of the lion.
The starving squatter.
Right. A starving dog barking behind a chain-link fence generates panic, noise, and chaos. But a true, massive lion roaring in the open completely stops the timeline. A true lion doesn't have to pace nervously. He doesn't have to snarl at every rustling movement in the tall grass because he knows the perimeter belongs to him. He knows he is the king.
He just lies there in the sun. He is completely at rest because he knows his own capacity.
He rests his jurisdiction. Because the perimeter is secured by the Foray garrison, the heir, the human being living in this reality, is declared anenklados.
Another Greek term, what does that one mean?
This is another profound diplomatic and legal term from the 1st century. It means unchargeable in court. It means the hearing does not even proceed. The file cannot be made admissible. No accusation from the anti-dikos, the legalist, can turn the heir back into a defendant.
So the unbothered Tuesday is characterized by what? It's characterized by an unhurried gaze. You aren't rushing frantically to prove your worth. It's a voice without apology. It is warmth toward others without the need for extraction like. You don't need them to validate you. And it is a command without panic. When the imposter lion howls outside the fence or a rogue symptom hits the Foray garrison.
The heir doesn't freak out. The heir simply sits down and eats dinner.
I love that.
Because the heir knows the math is completely finished. The summa, your innocent biological vehicle, is no longer running on the exhaustible sweat of the old economy. It is operating on the uncreated peace of the central vault.
This changes absolutely everything about how we walk through the world. You listening, you aren't a terrified pony waiting to be thrown into the incinerator of Gehenna. You are a highly advanced, fully commissioned kainoktesis, a new creation, a new species.
A warhorse.
Yes. You are operating a pristine biological vehicle capable of immense bridled power, walking through an unbothered Tuesday, completely untouchable by the bankrupt noise of the legalist.
The extraction mission we started with is complete. The imposter has been disarmed and exposed. The warhorse is bridled and ready for the rider.
Let's distill this deep dive down to the absolute bedrock before we go. The legalist's incinerator, that psychological Gehenna of self-condemnation, is a total fraud. The roaring lion is just a starving squatter with a microphone trying to trick you into dropping your authority. Your body, your summa, is not your enemy. It is a sacred 3D printer just waiting for the right code. And the vertical ledger, the debt between you and the creator, is permanently, irrevocably closed.
The corrupted Sark software has been uninstalled. The summa is finally free to print life, health, and peace.
So I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over today as you go about your business, as you drive to work, or as you sit at your desk. If your cells have spent your entire life dutifully printing the obsolete, fear-based software of a disbarred attorney, what happens to your physical surroundings when your DNA finally starts broadcasting the indestructible peace of the sovereign? Does the physical perimeter around you, the mood in your home, the atmosphere in your office, biologically change when you simply refuse to panic?
It is ultimately a question of acoustics. When you stop broadcasting the frequency of fear, the environment around you has no choice but to begin resonating with the peace of the closed ledger.
Enjoy your unbothered Tuesday. We'll see you on the next deep dive.